This video is a tutorial on how to create a Visual Basic project using Visual Studio 2013, the Professional Edition. You can also use the Premium Edition, but you cannot use the Blend Edition. So if you have the Blend Edition, please obtain the Professional or Premium version before creating any projects for this class. I've opened up Visual Studio 2013, the Professional Edition. Now, this is the start page, but if you don't get the start page, it's okay. When we create our projects, we're going to simply go to the File menu, choose New Project. Under here, you'll get this New Project window and maybe some other options that you can choose. For this class, we want a Visual Basic project. So I'll click on Visual Basic, make sure Windows Form Application is selected, and then I want to go down here and name my project. And I'll just call it Project X. Two things I want to also do here is check the destination of the project. In this case, I'm going to save it onto the desktop, but if I wanted to save it onto a flash drive or some other location, I can click on Browse to change the destination. The other important thing I want to do is make sure these two boxes are unchecked before I click OK. It's important to make sure these two boxes are unchecked. I'll click OK, and now I have a new form for my project. I'm going to make this form a little wider, and then I want to build an interface on top of this form, which means I want to put all of my controls up there for the program. I want to use my toolbox to put these controls onto my form. Now, on here I see that the toolbox is right here, and I can expand it or collapse it right there. But sometimes if it's not visible, you can always get the toolbox by going to the View menu and then selecting Toolbox. So I'm going to open up my toolbox, and now you see that my toolbox is on top of my form, which makes it difficult for me to create my interface. I'm going to grab the toolbox and float it over here so I can then build my interface. So I'm going to put a bunch of labels, 1, 2, 3 labels up here. I'm going to put 3 text boxes to be associated with these labels. And finally, I'm going to put 1 button on here to actually enter my code to execute the program. Now, these labels here, we will never have to name these labels. But the text boxes, the buttons, and list box, if we need it, will always have to be named in order for us to use them within the program. So I'm going to go about naming all of the text boxes and the buttons. To do that, I'm going to click on it, go here to the Properties window. Again, if the Properties window is not visible, you can get the Properties window by simply going to the View menu and choosing Properties window. Under the Properties window, I want to alphabetically sort these categories. Alright, so it's already alphabetically sorted. I'm going to go to the very top and look for name and parentheses, and then change this text box here to TXT units. The next text box I'm going to call TXT price. And finally, the third text box I'm going to call TXT total. So these are my 3 text boxes. Now, they have names, but I really wouldn't be able to tell what to put in there unless I change these labels. So I want to change the labels. Again, I don't have to name the labels, but I do want to put text within the labels. So I'm going to go down to the labels and I'm going to call this one units. I'm going to call this, I'm going to call this label price. And finally, I'll call this label total. So now I have labels here for all of these text boxes. And the last thing I want to do is name and also put a caption on my button. So I want to click on the button and the caption will simply be calc total. Now, the button must also be named, so I'm going to go back up here and name this button with the prefix BTN, and I'm just going to call it calc for short. So now I have the caption on my button, the button is named, the boxes are all set up. If I want to, I can take a label and put it up here. And again, for the label, I don't have to name it, but I can come down here and make this label say Project X. So I now have the label. Oh, let me make that. I now have the labels set, the text box set, and the button set. Now, some of our programs will require you to put a list box onto the form. So again, if I want to put a list box onto the form, I put the list box on the form, and then I would go up and label it LST results. And now I have my list box here. So once I have my interface built, I now want to put in the code. To put in the code, I need to go to the coding window. I can get to the coding window one of two ways. I do not want to just arbitrarily click anywhere on the form. If I click somewhere on the form, it can create a dummy subroutine in here that I really don't want to use. So I don't want that subroutine in there. Instead, when I'm on the form, the first time I get into the coding window, I should double click right on the button that I'm going to write code for. Now I have a subroutine that's associated with that button click event. If I then go back to the form view, I can get back to the coding window by just clicking on either the form or the clicking on the form or double clicking on the button. Okay. Another way to get back to the coding window is to right click anywhere and choose view code. But the important thing is I must have this button click event here ready for me to code. This is where I will put all of my code in here. So we won't go through how to write the program now, but this is where I would put my declaration, my input, my processing, and my output sections all within this subroutine. And that's it.